Greetings, everyone. I am Lotus Prince, and for this Let's Play we are going to tackle Chaos Child for the PlayStation 4. This is a Patreon request, so it's a viewer's choice. Chaos Child is one of the science adventure visual novels, like Steins Gate, which is considered one of the better VNs of its era. Chaos Child is kind of a horror visual novel. We play as Takira Miyashiro, and we're the head of our school's newspaper club. We are taking it upon ourselves to see if we can investigate a series of murders that has gone down in Shibuya. Now, this game does not get as textually graphic as, say, Corpse Party, and the images it shows you, while not incredibly gory, can be uncomfortable, so be aware of that. Not to mention, this game has its fair share of twists and turns, and not a few very emotional moments. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? Things aren't going to be completely pleasant when we're trying to follow a serial killer or multiple. We're going to have to find out what's going on. So let's get ready for a rather disturbing science adventure. Let's go crazy. Well, here we are. Curious title screen. There's some quickly pulsing action there. Fiction, no relation to anybody, sure. Huh. Welcome to Chaos World. I thought this was Chaos Child. Wow. If you are God and the delusion becomes reality, about what kind of the... That's very hard to read. Something you get about what kind of the... Is it the sensual world? The despotic society? The destructive sanctions? Or... Config? I don't know what there's going to be really to do here. Text message skip, delusion trigger. LNR to select delusion trigger is off? What? I don't know what that stuff means. Text, message speed. Boom. Skip mode. Yeah, read only. Sound were probably good. Wait, speaker like... What does that mean? Like a controller? I'm gonna turn that off. Voice. I appreciate that. You don't even know who they're going to be yet because possible spoilers. Anyway, let's do a new game. November 6, 2009. 10:28 p.m. It came without warning. Oh, damn. It was a magnitude 7.8 earthquake with an epicenter directly under the city. This disaster reduced one of Tokyo's busiest downtown areas to nothing in a single night. The high-rise buildings that had birthed so many trends and fads collapsed, as if giving up on their role in society. Black fire spread through the city. As individuals fell into the grip of the crowd's psychology, their terror was magnified. Combined, all of these things took many lives. The final death toll was 3,851. The final number of injured, 30,927. This event would later be known as the Shibuya earthquake. Even in all that destruction, people still suffered the most in their hearts. Some who had lost their families came together to share new resolve, while others who'd been forced to watch their friends die were driven by guilt to take their own lives. As a baby was miraculously reunited with its parents after 72 hours, a child in an evacuation shelter asked her dad, "When's Mommy coming home?" He had no answer. Some of the wounded made it to hospitals by looking at real-time updates on the web. Others saw people on the internet talking about the disaster as if it were a movie and were driven mad. A homeless man was saved from malnutrition by an organized volunteer group, but at the same time, a middle school boy punched a self-centered volunteer who'd come to Shibuya to find himself in the face. It was the first time in that boy's life he'd ever been violent. The psychological toll was incredible, and many of the survivors would later manifest symptoms similar to those associated with PTSD. Oh, I can play the voice and everything, but how do I... Let's config real quick. I saw the thing for PTSD up at the top of the screen, but it faded automatically. Is there a way for me to, like, check that? There it is, I see it. Tips list? There it is, okay. Post-traumatic stress disorder, from the 4th edition of the DSM-IV, the American Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Published 1994. Caused by severe shock from experiencing an accident, disaster, crime, or other seriously traumatic event. This mental disorder causes any number of stress-related issues. Symptoms include psychological instability, insomnia, confusion, memory trouble, and other problems that last for over a month. Okay, there it is. The young were hit the hardest, and before long the cause of those symptoms was given a name: Chaos Child Syndrome. Rebuilding happened at a feverish pitch never seen before. It felt inappropriate to say, "hang in there," but people felt that somebody had to do something. The new slogan was, "Shibuya, a city reborn," and no amount of money or manpower was spared in aiding the endeavor. The whole town was in for the grip of a fever. In private, a leader of the redevelopment efforts said, "This may sound unkind, but this frenzy feels like a town burying its grief by holding a festival." Building codes were rigorously evaluated with an eye toward earthquake engineering. Perhaps in an effort to emphasize the city's safety, security cameras were put up all over town. Shibuya would become a place where everyone could live in peace. But at the same time, a rumor began to spread about the earthquake. Something about this earthquake doesn't make sense. There were no aftershocks, and the damage had spread in a strange way. Well, yeah, it took a helicopter out of the sky. Harajuku and Ibisu, areas only a kilometer away from Shibuya, suffered few casualties and even fewer collapsed buildings. This damage pattern had never been observed in any prior earthquake, and so more than a few pundits claimed the Shibuya earthquake must have been artificial. More than anything, some of the survivors all said the same things. Some all. "I saw a white light. I heard a sound like a ringing in my ears." Too many people experienced this for anyone to laugh it off, but no cause of those phenomena was ever found. It was just more evidence to those who believed that something about the earthquake had been wrong. Then, 6 years after the strange earthquake, in 2015, something else was about to attract attention in the reborn city of Shibuya. Chaos Child. About what kind of the noids you get? What? That's what that was? Alright, there's our cold open, right? September 7th, Sunday night.
はい。ではいつも通り3分くらい募集をかけるんで、適当によろです。
I'm gonna see if I can't switch the language. If I can't, then I'll just mute it. I can turn individual voices off, but let's do voice volume. Boom. I don't think I could change it to English. Sorry about that. So I'm going to take 3 minutes for questions, get to it. The second he spoke, the comment box started to fill. Yuma Utane watched it for a few seconds and then saw the request. When does Haru tell us she's dating somebody? He smiled to himself. Just what he wanted. Most of the requests are about hot actors or cute idols. His audience was so stupid that it was easy to tell exactly what they were going to ask. The problem was always whether the name that came up was someone he knew. That was a question of luck and of how popular they were. But Haru? Her full name was Haruko something or other. She was fine. Maybe I'll just leave the Japanese voices on and not read the voices out loud, otherwise I'm going to get exhausted. I'll put them back on. In any case, Haruko Natsuno, 19 years old, a minor celebrity, became famous as a result of her bold declaration that no one her age knew as much about retro games and retro anime as she did, and her ability to back that declaration up on internet radio and live streaming programs. Wears glasses. Her plain clothes and hairstyle are said to be one reason she's popular with otaku. Regularly holds recordings of internet radio shows that are open to the public. Fair enough. I'll put the voices back on. Oh, did I not? Well, whatever, it's fine. I guess I didn't kick it in. Oh well, we're good. We're good. Just a few days ago, he'd forced himself to go to an event he'd rather have skipped and seen it for himself.
Yes.
Satisfied, Utani got up to get some snacks like he always did. Urbi Ootani, perhaps? He lived in a one-bedroom condo located 8 minutes from Shibuya Station. Cost 150,000 yen per month. It had been built after the earthquake, so the furnishings and layout were modern. A little more room would have been nice, but compared to the 40,000 yen per month place he lived in last year, it was heaven. You know, I gotta say, I really appreciate that the text lines up with the voice, so I don't have to worry about accidentally cutting off the voice when I'm done reading the text. Last time I saw that was in Corpse Party Blood Drive. At 21 years old, Otani felt satisfied for the first time in his life. In 4th grade, he'd gotten big into online gaming and stopped going to school. Eventually, he'd stopped leaving his room altogether. Then he'd gotten addicted to drugs that made him sleepy, but did nothing else. Once, seeing only darkness in his future, he'd planned to commit suicide. In the chaos after the earthquake 6 years ago, he'd finally managed to leave his room, but his family had already given up on him. After he failed his entrance exams, he went to live on his own in Shibuya, and he hadn't spoken to his parents since. As far as they knew, he'd failed the exams 3 times in a row. In fact, he hadn't even gone to the test after the first time. There wasn't anything he wanted to learn in college or any companies he wanted to work for badly enough. He had no goal in life at all. But things were different now. At Channel, a huge anonymous message board that's the largest of its kind in Japan. Its catchphrase is everything from hacking to tonight's dinner, and its boards contain comments on every topic imaginable. As of 2015, half of the users are in their late 20s to early 40s, and the age of the average user goes up every year. The primary reason for this is believed to be that younger users are switching to social networks. He took a block of cheap cheese he'd bought at the supermarket out of the fridge. Usually he never ate anything this cheap. But on Nikoniya live streaming, it wasn't just what you said. How you looked when you said it also mattered. It's a live streaming service offered by Nikoniya. Just like normal Nikoniya videos, viewers can add comments into the video itself, and the streamer can see what the viewers are saying in real time. Nikoniya offers official streams as well, and while after the site's founding many of them were subculture related, lately they've now expanded into news, sports, politics, and economics. As of 2015, their lineup is a match for any major TV station. I wonder if that's a nod to Nico Nico. Otani wasn't a good-looking man, let alone a cute girl. He was just a plain old guy. And so to keep his program popular, he needed to make them think that he was poor. Barely managing to scrape by, in fact. That's why he kept the area around his PC and the parts of his apartment that you could see with his webcam completely plain. Last month, he'd finally reached his goal of 4,000 viewers. For a man with nothing going for him like Otani, this was extremely unusual. 3 months ago, he'd guessed the winners of a popularity contest a certain idol group was holding, as well as their total number of votes. That must have really paid off. After that, his numbers had been going up steadily. Late last month, when his streams had appeared at the top of Nikonia's page, he'd seen a huge increase. Yeah, largest video sharing service. Often used to refer to the site that offers this service, Nikonia is unique for the way user comments can be embedded in the video directly. Many of its users are younger, and recently it's developed its own unique culture in the area of music. Right now he'd gotten above 4,500, and it was quite possible he'd break 5,000 by the end of the month. It was around late last year when he'd started to wonder about his power. It was a certain rumor on one of Atchan's occult boards that made him really start to realize what he had. The name he'd chosen for his stream subtly reflected this. Then I learned that I can see the future. Damn, that's super subtle. He took out a knife to cut the cheese. No pun intended. There was a strange sound.
Huh?
He thought he just imagined it when... Knock, 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 knock. He heard it again. It was coming from the door. Someone was clearly knocking on his door.
Mitsurin ka?
Jungle, maybe? An American online shopping site that's the largest in the world. Oh, cute. Amazon, Jungle. It said that 1 in 5 internet users has purchased something from it. It sells books. Again, they open with books. Maybe an Amazon, not again. Appliances, food, clothes, anything you can imagine is on sale there. Suspicious, he walked toward the door to answer, then checked the clock. It was 11:41 p.m. Not exactly normal delivery hours.
なんだよ。つか、生放送中だっつうの。
He tried to ignore it, but... That would actually creep me out after a point. The knocking continued. It was the same rhythm at the same pace, as if the visitor's goal wasn't to come inside, but simply to make that sound. Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not nearly as annoying, but I was thinking of Earthbound. What an annoying knock! Otani felt a bit creeped out. He decided to go to the intercom camera and see who it was, but then realized that would be pointless. Only the auto-locking door on the first floor had a camera. The door to Otani's room on the 5th floor had an intercom, but no camera. Otani gave up.
くせ。つか、用ならインターホン押せよ。
That is getting pretty frustrating.
酔っ払いか?
No, the knocks were too steady for that. And there was no voice yelling at him to open up. He'd seen this door a million times, but suddenly it looked somehow different. Someone he didn't know was on the other side of the wall, demanding entry in the middle of the night. Somehow this made the door seem intimidating. Otani thought he might look through the peephole to see who was outside. He was then disgusted to find himself too scared to even get close to the door. Wait. The intercom didn't have a camera, but it did have a microphone. He turned toward the living room so he could use the intercom and find out what they wanted. Otani, it's me. Sorry to come by so suddenly. He stopped when he heard that voice. Interesting that that wasn't voiced. It's me. I'm very sorry to bother you at this hour. Otani tried to remember who the speaker was, but found he couldn't. Let me just double check something. Yeah, okay, I did not stick with muting anybody. But from the tone of the voice and the words, they probably weren't a weirdo. When they said, I'm sorry, it sounded like they really meant it. Otani sighed softly with relief and then realized he was still carrying the knife he'd been using to cut cheese. Yeah, but I mean... What is it, a butter knife? It suddenly felt stupid to feel so nervous. He quickly laid the knife on top of the sink.
はいはい、今開けます。どちら様ですか?
Time for a death ending. You shouldn't have put down the knife. It's me, don't you remember? The voice simply repeated itself. This is off-putting. But who are you? Otani whispered to himself as he opened the door. Otani narrowed his eyebrows at the people standing there. What? He looked them up and down and then looked at their faces again. Their eyes met. Oh. Otani suddenly felt a piercing headache. Otani closed his eyes and put his right hand up to his temple. He could feel the blood pounding in his veins through his fingers. He staggered and quickly put his other hand against the wall to keep from falling over. The pain was like the old days, when he'd overdosed on antidepressants, but much more intense. He grit his teeth against the pain and dug his nails into the wall that was holding him up. As he waited for the pain in his fingers to help dull the pain in his mind... Mr. Otani, are you okay? He heard a voice he'd heard many times before and felt a concerned hand on his shoulder. He somehow managed to ignore the pain and open his eyes. A worried face was peering down at him.
大丈夫。最近たまにあるんだ。
Overwork, perhaps? You've been so busy lately. You shouldn't push yourself too hard.
相変わらず心配性だな、お前は。大丈夫だよ。さあ、入ってくれ。
He opened his mouth as wide as he could and moaned, trying to ease the pain as he led his important guests inside. As he turned his back on his guests, he told himself that it had been a long time since he'd seen them. Or maybe not. It couldn't have been more than 2 months since they last met. It only felt long because he'd wanted to see them so badly.
そうだ。せっかく来てもらったのにすまん。生放送中なんだよ。
While he was out here, he decided he would cut some cheese for himself and his guests. Oh, don't worry about us.
いや、お前ら相手にそういうわけにもいかないだろう。ん?
What's wrong?
いや、なんでもない。
The blade wasn't cutting into the cheese. What? That's strange, he told himself as he pushed down with more force. Yeah, that was an unpleasant sound. What the hell? He cut into its surface and it made an unpleasant sound he'd never heard before. But no matter how hard he pushed, it wouldn't go further. This is weird. Confused, he yanked the knife back and forth like a saw, but it only cut in slightly deeper. It was as if there was something hard inside the cheese. And even though he'd only just taken it out of the fridge, it was slightly warm.
くそ、なんだよこれ。
Irritated, he slammed the handle of the knife against the cheese. But all it did was bash it in a little. He couldn't cut through it.
ふざけんなよ。
I'll help you. His guests must have heard the sound because they rushed over. They had another knife. What? When did they get that out? There's a trick to cutting this thing. What? The hell is that sound? They put the knife up against the cheese and began to move it with a practiced hand. It sounds like your work is going well. They smiled at Otani, their voices slightly low. Otani realized that they were trying to keep their voices from being picked up by the streaming microphone, and lowered his voice as well. Man. He grinned and nodded. His guest had introduced him to a firm that handled advertising space for popular websites, which had been giving him regular work. His reputation had quietly spread throughout the small web advertising industry, and soon he was getting more and more offers.
流行を予想することが肝なこの仕事は天職だよ。出来レースみたいなもんだ。
Then why do these streams?
一言では言いづらいな。強いて言えば、自分がどこまでいけるか試したいみたいな感じなんだけど。
What I don't understand is, what are his viewers watching? Him just sitting there and keeping his voice down? It's the most boring stream ever. That's right. His power wasn't meant to be wasted on jobs that anyone could do. Are we finally going to get a load of who's here?
誰も経験したことないから誰かに聞くってわけにいかないだろ。だから自分でやれるだけやってみたいっつうかってかっこよすぎかこれは。
No, it was wonderful, I think. And done. After he'd smacked it a few times, the cheese was a little funny looking, but the even slices were lined up neatly on the plate. If it's that hard to cut, though, can you eat it?
悪いな、働かせて。
It's nothing. Go on. I'll wait until your stream is finished.
ああ、冷蔵庫の中適当に見繕ってくれていいから。ああ、静かにな。
How long is this stream gonna go for, though? What are you doing? Otani took his cheese back to his seat and saw a flood of comments reading, "He's late, and did he log off?" Okay, so the empty chair waiting for him to start? What should have been only 3 minutes had turned into more than 15. But there you go. Otani put a bite of the cheese in his mouth and began to chew loudly.
申し訳ない。この安売りセールしていたチーズがありえないくらい硬くて。
That is true. That's just straight up true. He apologized to the camera, remembering to keep up the act of being poor and starving. Yeah, but this was cheap, and it was incredibly hard. And as he hoped, the comments started to come in. W? Is that the laughter? Niconia is always like this, right? You reported. The broadcast will end soon. I heard you have new hobbies. This is weird. This is making me sick. What happened? I'm very worried. You trained in Hollywood. I could tell. Stop. It's disappearing. W. Yeah, it's Japanese LOL, short for Ware, which means laughter. It's said to find its origin in a certain non-Japanese online game which only allowed for the use of the English alphabet. By putting W's in the middle or at the end of a phrase, a user can indicate that they're laughing. Often used on @chan, which I'm assuming is... Well, my default reference would be 4chan, but in Japan it's probably 2chan. And Niconia, and often used to indicate mocking or derisive laughter. Mayashiro believes there a person's use of W is a sign that they are of low intelligence, and he refuses to use it himself. Wow, okay. If you type LOL, you're of low intelligence. Like, damn. It made more sense when we used flip phones, where you kind of had to type everything in abbreviations because it was a murderous nightmare to type out full words with the phone keypad. The numeric keypad. Otani's face took on a confused expression. The comments were strange. He thought there might be something on the camera, but he turned around and saw only his fake, poor room. Yeah, they were talking about his Hollywood acting, and is this a fake?
どうしました?
He spoke into the camera, but the comments still didn't make any sense, and they were coming in faster. Maybe there was a problem with the camera? He reached his right hand out toward it. In an instant, his headache was back. It was the same pain as before. No. Worse. He closed his eyes and jerked forward, banging his head against the desk. But the pain in his head was so bad that he didn't even feel it. He tried to hold his head in his hands, but for some reason his right hand wouldn't move. So instead, he pushed his other hand up against his temple. It felt squishy. Oh, whoa. The vein was incredibly swollen. It felt like rubber. And each time he felt his blood pulse through it, there was an unpleasant sensation in his fingers. He stamped his feet against the floor, hoping to find some small escape from the pain. But it didn't even get slightly better. It was then that he realized he was crying. He could feel the tears coming from his eyes. The pain was moving there now, too. Unable to bear it, he opened his eyes. Wow, damn, that must have hurt. He gasped. The whole scene appeared in front of him like some kind of awful magic trick. Dude, WTF are you doing? The broadcast is cursed. I know how you feel, but what the hell? This is creepy, etc. He suddenly heard the sound of something wet dripping onto the floor. His eyes reflexively turned toward it. His right arm was gone at the elbow, and the stump was gushing blood? What? There was a pool of it on the floor, and the sound he heard was the new blood spattering into it, or splattering.
Huh?
Otani didn't understand what had happened to him. What was going on? He just got to check on a knock at the door. Did the intruder cut his arm off? Or is this a supernatural phenomenon? The pain screamed within him. Any sense of pain in what remained of his right arm was overcome by the pain in his head. He felt nothing from his arm at all, though he saw the blood dripping to the floor. What the hell was going on? He blinked and forced his aching eyes to function as he looked around the room. Wait a sec. Yeah, the cheese was his arm. That's why it was so hard. Did he cut his arm off and not feel it? Was the hard part the bone? This is messed up. So the intruder was like, let me help you with that? On top of his desk, he found the rest of his arm. And he was biting into it? No wonder the comments were like, what? It was sitting on a plate. At first, it looked like it was still in one piece. But it wasn't. So his guest politely helped him cut off his arm? That is freaking wild. But he got the cheese from the fridge? It was neatly sliced into uniform pieces. Each piece was about a centimeter wide, and the slices moved neatly toward his fingers. They sat upon the plate in, roughly, his arm's original shape. Miraculously, he saw there was no blood on the tip of his index finger. He still didn't understand that it was really his own arm, but sheer disgust at what he saw caused him to leap out of his chair. What was this? What kind of prank was this? The contents of his stomach flooded into his mouth. He vomited. The pink fluid splashed against the desk. He saw something solid in the middle of it. Bone from arm? It was a thumb. Oh my god. It was covered in bite marks, saliva, and stomach acid, but horribly, he remembered it. What? When had he put that into his mouth? Who's the guest? Why have we never seen them? Was there a guest? In his pain-filled mind, he suddenly heard a sound he'd never heard before. Each time he heard the sound, the pain in his head got worse. He turned toward the camera, hoping for an answer to what was happening. But of course, there was none to be found. The screen was still filling with comments, but his eyes were too filled with tears for him to read them. As the whole world turned red, Otani didn't even realize that his lips were turning purple. His lips had turned purple from lack of oxygen, but were stained red with blood from his severed thumb, which he had chewed himself. God damn! As he tried to fight the pain, he began to fall unconscious, and tears fell from his eyes. The tears seemed pink to him. Otani was weeping blood. He died, still facing the camera. So he's not the guy we're going to be following for this game, I guess. But what was it about seeing the future, then? His guests, who are really here, watched the chain of events unfold, then silently headed for the door. Just before they left the room. Goodbye. With a comma? That was weird. Okay, goodbye, they said, as if nothing at all was wrong, and shut the door. God, what the hell? Extra saucy, 666, on board, go out to the usual stream. Yeah, Mr. Edgelord over there. Well then, September 19th, Friday night. Momone Takayanagi had finished her concert. Like always, she stayed behind to help put away the instruments. She even helped clean up the audience seats, even though that was the concert hall's job. Only after all that was done could she take a break. There wasn't much time left before her solo street concert, but she still had to help anyway. She'd always been like that. Even if it wasn't her responsibility, she couldn't help but get involved. It was like in middle school, when one of her friends who wasn't as good at studying asked her for test notes. Or in high school, when a girl she knew asked her how to make Valentine's chocolate for a boy she really liked. Yeah, I think I covered this a very long time ago during my White Day Let's Play, but Valentine's Day in Japan is basically girls give chocolate to boys they like, And then White Day is 1 month later, on March 14th, where boys give white things, like white chocolate or marshmallows or lingerie, to girls they like. So it's like reciprocal Valentine's Day. She'd stayed up so many nights, her own test grades were worse than her friends, and she didn't have even anyone to give chocolate to on Valentine's Day. In the end, it was the other person's responsibility, not hers, but... Wuss, there's a word I haven't heard in, like, decades. Momone Takayanagi was, at heart, scared of not doing everything she could, even if everything wasn't her responsibility. The concert today was another big success. Sure, it was a tiny room that could only fit in 150 people or so, standing room only, but tickets were 3,000 yen, high for a band with an amateur vocalist like her, and they still sold out instantly. It was bizarre how excited the crowd was. She'd heard sobs during the ballad, and during one of the high-tempo songs, the audience had stood up all the way to the back row. She felt a chill and hugged herself tightly. It's not that her band wasn't popular. Normals must explode Chronicles? It started out in the Nikoniya Sang It category, and it kept going by doing covers of popular anime songs. Ooh, give me some JoJo Phantom Blood, please. Sang It, a category tag on the Nikoniya video site. Category tags are genres defined by the site's administrators, such as anime, gaming, and sports, that are used to classify the videos that users upload. Sang It, as the name suggests, is a genre where the uploader sings a song in the video. There are many different types of Sang It songs, such as original songs, covers of existing ones, songs with lyrics added to what was originally instrumental music. Its relationship to the Vocaloid genre has helped it expand its popularity with the younger generation to the point where there are now even books and events dedicated to the genre. In 2015, it was one of the most popular genres on Nikoniya, and many people have turned pro after uploading a Sang It video. It helped that her face, which had earned her the nickname Scarecrow in school, could look really good when she wore makeup. And if all of them put on ridiculous costumes and acted like idiots, some people would enjoy that. Videos of their concerts and performances pulled a decent number of views online, but Takayanagi noticed. The vast majority of the people looking at the videos were people who'd come to her concerts. People who'd experienced an insane intensity were going back to the videos to try and feel it again, and Takayanagi knew that they probably wouldn't feel even 1% of it. The ticket prices and audience sizes were one thing, but the strangest thing to her was their eyes. Their eyes pierced right through her, unblinking. They were like pets, totally dependent on their master. The meaning of the lyrics began to take over their lives, and they never even questioned it. When she first realized that this was happening, she tried to quit the band. Even if she couldn't, she at least wanted to stop doing the live shows where people heard her directly. But the others around her wouldn't let that happen. "Your voice is amazing," they would tell her. They forced her to keep singing even as concerts began to terrify her. Takayanagi tried to get out of it, but in the end she kept giving in. She owed her fellow band members for getting a plain dull girl like her into music, and for a while part of her managed to have fun. But in the end, Takayanagi lacked the tiny bit of courage needed to break out of the cycle. She forced herself to get up and head toward the street concert, which she didn't really want to do. She received an email. She read it slowly. She almost dropped her smartphone. She read it again and again, trying to control her shaking hands. It was nothing special, just a simple message about one of the songs she'd made. "Good song, keep it up." Oh my god, how many people are gonna die in this prologue? Takayanagi tried to stop the tears, but couldn't. The band would get too many messages like this to count, especially after concerts. She knew it was rude, but to be honest, she was sick of them. But this email address wasn't for her band, it was one for a site where she had anonymously uploaded original songs. In other words, whoever sent this message hadn't come to her concerts. They'd never heard her voice live or felt its strange power. But they had still said they liked her song. Wiping away tears that wouldn't stop, she quickly wrote a response. "That makes me really happy. Thank you." Even after she sent it, she kept crying for a while. She hadn't cried this much since the earthquake, and then she stood up. She took her costumes for the day's concert out of her bag, balled them up, and threw them in the trash. It was a white caped outfit worn by some angel character in some anime. Certain fans really loved it, but she didn't care about it at all. She took a wet towel off a nearby table and violently wiped away her makeup. She was never wearing another cape or putting on makeup to look like an anime character again. Never, she said aloud. She realized she was more excited than she'd ever been before, and then she started to realize what she wanted to do. What would happen if she said she was going to quit the band? It had caused trouble for a lot of people, definitely. Her band was scheduled to play in the Restoration Festival, but even so, she never wanted to sing at another concert. She laughed and kissed her smartphone. She couldn't wait to get home and start fiddling with her music. Over the web, she could really share her music with others. As long as they weren't hearing her voice live, it would be fine. If she just played a recording from a speaker, for example. That's right. She'd leave Shibuya, and when she had a few more songs, she could record them and play them at a street concert. That speaker was small enough that she could fit it into her clothes to fool people. It'd be rude to do the same song every time, so each time she'd re-record it at home. Oh, you gotta be kidding me now. I don't want to continue the prologue. There was a knock at the door. One of the staffers, maybe? She smiled and answered them. Now that she'd thrown away her clothes, her bag was lighter than she'd ever imagined it could be. That lightness made her think about the future. She was happy. I noticed it's 4 knocks. I wonder if this is significance to 4, with the death connotation in Japan.
Hi!
The rhythm's weird, though. Takayanagi happily danced toward the door, completely ignorant of what was on the other side. Oh boy, can't wait. Oh. September 19th, Friday night. Shortly after she finished, she was walking through Shibuya. She had a limp and dragged one leg behind her as if it was injured. Her bangs were unnaturally long. Most of her face was covered by them. She wore a dark-colored dress that seemed to melt into the night, and above it a bright red cardigan. Her chest, arms, and legs were almost completely covered. Despite the fact that the night was still warm, she wore gloves as if it were a sin to show any skin at all. She ran into a couple coming out of a hotel and staggered slightly. But she didn't even look at the people she ran into. She looked down and disappeared into the streets of Shibuya.
誰？決めな。ねえ、今の人の顔見た？んだよ。気持ち悪い。何あれ？何？あの目。
Huh. Oh? Did I make it to a title screen? I got a quick save. Huh. I've made it this far? Takuro Miyashiro. Well, now that we've gotten through that setup, I think I'll stop here. For now, it is time to stop the installment. Well, we certainly made a lot of progress today, didn't we? We made it through what I assume was the prologue, and what a setup it was. That was creepy. I didn't think the game would get super disturbing, let alone this early. I mean, this is one of the science adventure games. Like, I know what happens generally in Steins Gate. I at least saw the anime. I know Chaos Head, Chaos Child is a different series, but I didn't think it would get depraved just instantly. Who knows what more this game has to offer? Until next time, everyone.